Hi, it's Izzy again. Welcome to my writing workshop. Today we are talking about some more story structures. Our source for today is Jerry Jenkins's article, 7 Common Story Structures You Can Use in Your Novel. Here, we will only be covering 3 more story structures, but if you want to learn more, be sure to check out our source. Now, let's get started. The first story structure we will be talking about today is Dean Koontz's story structure. There are 4 key elements of this story structure to keep in mind, on top of the basics we learned last week. The first of these is that the main character should experience really bad trouble early on. Before this happens though, or maybe because of it, we need to care about this character first. When we learn about characters in the 5th video, we'll talk about how to do this. The second is that when the main character tries to get out of this trouble, it only makes it worse. This helps to build the rising action. Then, in the climax, if the story is a comedy, all seems hopeless. I like to use this as a general comedy climax rule of thumb, but some non-Dean Koontz stories don't use it. In a Dean Koontz story structure, though, it is necessary. Lastly, whether or not the story is a comedy or a tragedy, what ends up happening at the end of the story seems like it couldn't possibly happen. For example, let's say the main characters of a fantasy story are captured by an all-powerful sorcerer and trapped inside a dungeon. But somehow, against all odds, they manage to escape from the dungeon and defeat the evil sorcerer that put them there. This would be a Dean Koontz-style ending because it seems impossible that the main characters will be able to escape from the dungeon, let alone defeat the all-powerful sorcerer. On the other hand, in a tragedy, it might seem like everything will be alright and that nothing could possibly go wrong. Then it does. The second story structure we're learning about today is called in media res. In this type of story, the goal is to hook or draw in your readers early on. This can be accomplished by writing an interesting prologue or jumping straight into some kind of action, but those aren't the only ways to do it. To me, it seems like many dystopian or futuristic books take this approach. They hook the readers by starting the story without explicitly explaining the rules, customs, or time period of the city it is set in. Readers have to figure out the social setting of the story by themselves. After the hook, there is rising action. Then, all the following elements of the story structure are the same as the basic one we talked about last week, with the exception of an explanation in between the rising action and the climax, where the backstory is explained, and the reader is no longer in the dark so much. The last story structure we will talk about today is the 7-point story structure. It consists of, you guessed it, 7 elements. The hook, which is the same as in media res. Plot turn 1, when the main character finds out about something. Pinch point 1, when the character feels pressure to act. Midpoint, when they decide to act. Then after the midpoint, there's the second pinch point, where even more pressure is put on the main character. The plot turn 2, which is the point where the main character gets everything they need to defeat the enemy. Then lastly, there is the resolution, where the main character finally defeats the enemy. Thanks for watching. I'm Izzy Irby, and once again, our source for this video came from Jerry Jenkins's article, 7 Common Story Structures You Can Use in Your Novel, which you can access in the description below this video. Next week, we'll dive into types of stories and how to make decisions about what kind of book you want to write. Please leave a comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time!